All right. All right, folks, welcome back. This is your host, Jason Pockrant, founder of Fatherless to Fatherhood and Career Crusher Radio. We are here with a very special guest for all the fathers and mothers out there. We have Kylee Sallak. She is the founder of Parenting Made Joyful in New York City. She works with parents on sleep training, behavior training, and potty training. And she is here today with her 3 secrets on how to handle the kids in these areas, and also give a little bit of insight for all the fatherless fathers and just the other fathers and mothers that feel alone and, sometimes hopeless in this world, raising new kids, new sons, new daughters, the blessings of the world, but sometimes the hardships of our days, if you will.
Absolutely.
So happy to have you here, Kylee.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here, and really excited to kind of give your listeners some more information that's going to make their days easier.
Awesome. So why don't you dive right in first and tell everyone out there listening just a little bit about you and your backstory and how you got into becoming the go-to resource for parents.
Yeah, so I have been working with kids and with parents since 2001, working with them around behavior training and stopping the tantrums and the whining, getting them sleeping through the night, and potty training. So that's been for the past 18 years, and I launched my business. I do one-on-one coaching with families in home, and I also do virtual coaching on a membership site, and that has recently scaled to having a national reach.
Nice. Very, very nice. Very nice. So did this start with you and your kids and the struggles, or did you just stem into an interest for helping other parents, or?
Yes. So initially I was working with families as a nanny, and basically family after family, this thing kept happening where I would sleep train their children. I'd go on play dates. People at the play dates would say, "What do you mean you've got to go back for nap? You're still naps?" And I'd say, "Yeah, do you want me to show you how?" And I would teach them, because for whatever reason, it just came very naturally to me. So it would basically snowball from there. I would help so many families, basically all of the friends of that child who I was nannying. Mm-hmm. I'd end up sleep training them for free because I love it, and it's something I'm passionate about. Family after family, this kept happening. Hundreds of kids later, I said, maybe I should turn this into a business. Stop doing it for free. So I launched 3 years ago, and basically every family that I've helped sleep train inevitably had questions about potty training also and behavior training also. And so those are my areas that I'm really passionate and really knowledgeable about.
Very cool. So which one was it? Which one did you find to be the most difficult? Which one was the most difficult to correct?
It's not that any of them are more difficult than the other. It's that sleep training is easier in the sense that there's a definitive finish point, because they're sleeping through the night and they're napping well, and you can say, done. Behavior training is a little less clear because it's natural for kids to push and test boundaries. It's appropriate. It's developmentally appropriate for them to do that. So there really isn't a clear ending. It's more, you want to gauge, are they tantruming less often? Are they whining less? Are they using their kind, respectful words more? So you can't really ever expect a child to completely stop whining or completely stop misbehaving, because they're kids and that's human nature for them. So that one's more difficult in terms of how do we measure this?
Right. That was my next question. So how would someone, what advice would you give us? How could we track that? So in my scenario, my daughter is, naturally more connected to her mom, right? And so there's days where she says, she's like, "No, Mom, you need help with your boots. You need help taking off your coat." And she's 4. She just turned 4.
Right.
And it frustrates us, right? As parents, as the dad, I get irritated. I'm like, why doesn't she love me? Why does she I can help her with her boots? And she's like, "No, Mommy."
Right. So that's a really common question, especially among dads, because kids all tend to kind of lean a little bit more towards mom for some pretty big reasons. But then don't worry, at some point it switches places. At some point they start favoring dad, so just stay strong. But until then.
What point is that? Is there a certain time that happens, or is it like a progression of?
No, I mean, it's going to kind of come and go in phases and in waves, but there definitely is a point where kids kind of switch sides.
Really?
But in the meantime, when your child is refusing to let you help or refusing to do whatever it is you've said for them to do, and they say, no, I want mommy to do it. The thing that makes that behavior continue is by mommy rewarding her by stepping in and doing it for her.
Sure. Okay.
So mommy and daddy both need to say, your choice is you can either put on your boots by yourself or daddy can help you. Those are your choices. And then she won't feel empowered to continue saying no to dad because mom is no longer enabling that dynamic.
Really? How do you think that affects kids in terms of like certain personality styles? So my daughter's naturally more independent, more dominant to begin with. So she'll fight me till she's blue in the face about wanting mom to do it or struggling herself to do it while still fighting me when I try to help her.
So that the answer to that is twofold. One, if you're rushing to get out the door, you've got to be at work, you've got to be at school, you've got somewhere to be. You kind of have to just sit her down and put her boots on her, you know what I mean, through the tantrum.
Okay.
But in an ideal situation, well, first of all, in that situation, it should be you, not mom also.
Okay.
In an ideal situation, you have a little more time to let things naturally play out. In that case, mom should walk away, go to a different room, run out, get coffee, run out, start her day, go to whatever she's doing. So she's not part of the equation then. Okay. And then you can basically let your child feel her feelings. If she's strong, she's independent, she's not having it, she's allowed to feel that way. But guess what, friend? We're not doing anything fun until those boots are on you. So either you're putting them on or I'm putting them on. And you need to be patient enough to let her go through the tantrum. And when she calms down, talk about it again. Wow, you were feeling really upset about those boots. Are you ready to try again? After she's calmed down.
And you find that to be more effective to naturally always let them sort of feel through it themselves?
Feeling their feelings. Yes, feeling their feelings is really critical. I think today's parents, whether you're the mom or the dad, whether you were raised with a dad or not, today's parents are drowning in data and drowning in information. We've all read so many studies, we've all read so many parenting books that we're kind of unsure of what's best. So there's a lot of second guessing. Part of that second guessing is parents are made to feel bad if they let their child cry. Right. And the reality, our job as parents is to teach our children, hey, it's okay for you to feel upset or frustrated, just like it's okay for you to feel happy or excited. And these are natural human feelings, and here's how you can deal with them in a healthy way, rather than I'm going to protect you from ever feeling upset, because that's not real life.
So what do you think, I'm curious now, on the opposite side of it as parents, right, how do you think it affects the dynamic, or what do you think is the reason that us as parents don't allow ourselves to feel our feelings? And do you think that in turn, is us projecting that same kind of persona, or like?
So in my experience,
that kind of,
Yeah, so in my experience, it's less that, and it's more parents saying, whether they're saying it out loud or not, they're saying it in their head for sure. I'm strong enough to deal with my own struggles, but I'm not willing. I love my child so much that I want to protect my child from feeling any of those sad things that I've had to feel. It's my job as a parent to protect my child from feeling these sad things. And so even though I can handle it, I'm going to do everything I can to prevent my child from feeling that, which is emotionally understandable. But when we look at the long-term effect of that, we're creating kids who don't have a realistic understanding of what life is like or how to manage it or navigate those feelings.
So my next question then is, that's unhealthy for us to do that. As much as we think we're protecting them, right, we're enabling the downfall, I guess, long-term, in a sense. Yep. Interesting.
Yep. Exactly. And every tantrum is an opportunity. Every tantrum is an opportunity to teach our children, it's okay that you're feeling upset. We don't get upset with them for being upset. It's okay to feel upset. Mommy and daddy feel upset sometimes too. And it's also an opportunity to, after they have felt their feelings, talk them through what just happened. Gosh, you seemed frustrated when I gave you the option of putting on your boots with me or by yourself. Was that frustrating? Giving a label helps them to process their own feelings. And then after that, you have an opportunity to say, well, next time you're feeling frustrated, what else could we do? And kind of problem solve with them. Because now you're giving them the tools to feel frustrated in a healthy way and to try a different choice next time.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. That's a quotable too. You had that every tantrum is an opportunity. I'm not sure if you had that quotable, Jeff. We should put that. That's got to go on Instagram later.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my closet, like every wall in my house, I think too.
Well, I'm more than happy if that was a light bulb moment for you. I can send you and any of your listeners bonus. I have a PDF called How to Stop Tantrums, which basically walks you through my 9 tricks to preventing tantrums and stopping tantrums in their tracks.
What are these 9? Like, do I just need to put them on I need to put them on a index card and keep in my wallet, so when my daughter goes crazy, I just pull it out and remember, Jason, do not get angry. Lennox, you okay? Jason, step 2. That I think I might need. It's free. That's awesome.
Not a bad idea. You might want to print it out and tape it up inside your closet or something. It's definitely a go-to tool for my clients.
That's awesome. So did you get into all this? You said you started out as a nanny. Was the journey, did it just morph from you as a nanny right into you doing all this research and learning and understanding? Or, I mean, did you have another career and then come back and fall in love with this passion? Or
no, this has always been it for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when I got to the point of incorporating and formally launching a business, I had this moment of panic where I was like, wait a minute, I've been doing this since 2001. I've done this with hundreds of kids. I feel like I know what I'm doing.
Right.
But I better double check and make sure that what I'm doing is empirically supported by the medical community. So I kind of took a minute to reach out to different people, and I was very blessed to have been put in contact with Dr. Richard Ferber and Dr. Rafael Palaio and Dr. Michael Grandner, who are all massive figures in the pediatric sleep communities.
Really?
And so I was able to chat with them and say, here's what I do with my families. This is the outcome. This is right, isn't it?
Good. Yes. No.
I was like, if I'm going to call myself a business, I better actually double check and make sure what I'm doing is right. So it was kind of like a whew type of moment when they were all like, yeah, here are the studies that support everything you've been doing for all these years. So it was kind of a relief moment for me.
That's awesome. So let's segue that into the sleep then. So what are your secrets here? I remember when I first had my daughter, right? So I was 28 years old. Mm-hmm. And we went to the doctors. I remember we went to the doctors and we had taken a pregnancy test. I was at Toastmasters at the time, and we took a pregnancy test on a Thursday, and my wife's crying and eating Starburst, and I was like, I can't miss Toastmasters tonight. I'm giving a speech. And so I still went, and then went to the doctors next morning, and so the doctor comes in, and we're sitting there. She comes in, and she goes, congratulations. And I said, for what? And she's like, you're pregnant. And I was like, oh. And I remember I was like, oh, shit, I'm going to be a dad. And I write that in the book. That was my one-liner. I was like, oh, man, like, I don't have a dad. I don't know what to do. Like, and it's a daughter. So I tell people I wrote father-daughter conversations for the men that became a father, number one, and then had a daughter. And they're like, what do I do with that? I had a client one time who said, I feel like I have this alien at home. Like, I know how to talk to my boys. My daughter is like this alien at home, and I don't know what to say to her sometimes. And I was like, yeah. And so sleeping. So I remember having our daughter, and I would bottle feed, and I'd be up at night, and it'd be 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be out there with this baby just watching. That's when I first found Blacklist, which is now one of my favorite shows. But I was like, I'd watch Blacklist all night on Netflix, and I'm just sitting there for hours, and I could not figure out how to get her to sleep. And I mentioned to you before the call, for us it was, we were doing Young Living Oils and trying to clean up the house, and get rid of all the chemicals, and, all good parents would do when you have a baby, and you're like, get rid of the Clorox. And that's what they taught me at the dad boot camp, right? And but they never taught us anything about how to put her to sleep, like how to really put your kid to sleep. Mom needs to sleep. Mom's got to go, and you've got a baby for 6 hours in the middle of the night. And so for us, it was lavender in the tub, and then the diffuser, and she finally went out, and I felt like a rock star and told all my friends and family. But what are your secrets for helping us figure that out?
So, there's a specific reason that you were never taught how to put your baby to sleep.
Really?
Yes. And the specific reason is that most professionals are not willing to touch the topic of sleep because it is so controversial.
Really?
If you were, I don't know how daddy groups are on Facebook, as I'm not a part of any of them, but mommy groups on Facebook, if you were to say, hey everybody, I decided to sleep train, and put that as a post, you would find 200 comments underneath that thread of women attacking each other and saying, how dare you sleep train your child? That's a terrible thing to do to your baby. And other people saying, don't judge people for sleep. It's a very controversial topic. You either are for it or you're against it. There's really nobody who feels in between about it.
What do you think fuels all the emotion? What is the...
What fuels all the emotion is there is no way to sleep train your child without some tears involved. And
from parents or from the kids?
Sometimes both, but from the kids, because and some babies cry hardly at all, and it's over really quickly, and they're a breeze. Okay. And other babies are extremely intense. But as with anything, it's a bell curve.
Sure.
Most babies fall somewhere in between. And so the reason for all of the emotional controversy about it, the real question is, should you sleep train or not? The real question is, you shouldn't let your baby cry. Good parents don't let their babies cry.
Right. I've heard that. I felt that.
Yes, you have felt that because it's been hammered into you as a new parent. Basically from the moment you found out you were pregnant, you've been having ads targeted to you in various places as a new parent and expecting parent. And the messaging very much is good parents don't let their babies cry, which is not true, by the way. So that was a long way of saying, let me give you a couple of tips and tricks. If any of your dads listening have brand new babies, this applies to them. If any of the dads have toddlers, this applies. If any of your dads have older kids that are not in their crib anymore, that's a bigger topic, and I can address that for you at another time, I guess.
Sure.
So for those of you who have babies and toddlers that are still in the crib, first and foremost, you need to put your baby down awake. The problem with putting your baby down asleep and then tiptoeing out of the room is that you put your baby to sleep. They didn't accomplish that by themselves. And as stupid as it is to think that falling asleep is a skill, it actually is a learned skill. And so when your baby then wakes up 45 minutes later, 2 hours later, 5 hours later, whatever it is, they have no idea how to get themselves back to sleep without help. And so the biggest thing you can start doing is making sure that you're putting your babies down awake.
Okay. So, really? So then is it from the beginning then it's forcing them to learn how to go to sleep? If we're putting them down awake all the time, right?
Not from the beginning. In the beginning, the first 12 to 16 weeks, you have a brand new baby. It is not their job at that point to self-soothe or to learn independent sleep. That's your job in those first, 3 or 4 months.
To put them asleep or put them down,
to help them sleep, to self-soothe or to help them soothe, and to rock them and coddle them and nurse them and give them a bottle to help them sleep. But after that point, after the 3 or 4 month mark, that's when it's appropriate to start saying good night, I love you, fresh diaper, fresh PJ, sing a song, kiss on the head, down in the crib awake.
Okay.
And that's where all the controversy starts, because then what does baby do?
Cries. Crazy.
Right. And parents can't fathom doing that, so it becomes a very complicated topic.
So what is your thought? What is your expert opinion on anything? Do we just push through it? Do we just let the baby cry? We have to...
So there's a couple of different sleep training methods. There are methods that are marketed as no cry sleep training solutions. Those are lies.
Okay.
Don't fall for it. This is basic psychology 101. If you're reshaping human behavior, there's going to be pushback. And so say you're quitting smoking cigarettes, right? That's reshaping human behavior. Your pushback is you're going to be kind of cranky for a couple weeks. You're going to have a shorter temper. You're going to, whatever your response, your human response is. babies are no different. So we're reshaping their behavior. So their response is going to be to protest. They don't have little picket signs, nor can they talk. So their protesting comes in the form of crying. And basically when they're crying, they're saying, I don't agree with this. I would really rather you rock me to sleep. I would really rather you nurse me to sleep or bottle feed me to sleep. That's what the crying is.
Okay.
And so the no cry sleep solutions, I don't teach that. My clients know that that's kind of a crock of shit. Whoops, sorry. In the meantime, there are other sleep training solutions that are more reasonable. So I teach my parents a brief reassurance method, which allows the parents to go in and comfort their baby while they're crying within some specific, some specific rules and boundaries that I give them. For example, yes, you can go in and comfort your baby, but don't stay too long. Because if you stay there too long, you'll just comfort them back to sleep.
Right.
Which goes against the goal. So yes, you can go in and comfort your baby, but please don't pick them up out of the crib because that's confusing. So instead they stand next to the crib and pat, 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 shh, 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 I love you, night, night, whatever soothing crap you can come up with, right?
Right.
And then you get out of there, you set a timer for a longer length of time, and then you go back in for brief reassurance again. Okay. So I guide my parents through that process. And at the end of the process, basically the child learns how to fall asleep independently, and you haven't abandoned them. You've gone in periodically to check on them as they're learning.
So when you said set the timer, is that on the assumption that you put them down, they're going to continue to keep crying, and then you're going to go back in and they're going to keep crying, and you're still doing the back and forth thing, right? You're just elongating the time periods that you stay away.
Yep.
That was okay. So they're learning to cry a little bit longer until they learn eventually, like they can cry for X amount of time before they just fall asleep on their own, right?
Right. And basically the crying, parents think crying's so terrible. Crying is one of the most common ways that babies soothe themselves. The difference between a baby who is sleep training and a baby that is sleep trained, the quality of the cry changes. So during sleep training, the quality of the cry is pretty intense, and it gets less and less as you go. A baby who is sleep trained, a lot of them still do cry before they fall asleep, but it is a short amount of length of crying, and it's not very intense. It's more like kind of frustrated fussing, and that's just their way of self-soothing.
See, that's really interesting. For me, and I hope everyone listening, that's a really interesting takeaway, because I remember for me personally, there was always the guilt associated with the longer I waited to go back in there. And it also coupled that with the anger between me and my wife. We're both frustrated about the fact that I had to go back in every 5 minutes because I felt like I literally walked out and then she's screaming again. And so I'd walk back in and then I'd tell her to go to lay down and she wouldn't. And I'd be like, you got to lay down and you got to go to bed. And then I'd leave. And then I felt like a jerk because I left again. And so I'd be like, I can't take it. She's crying like crazy. I got to go back in there. And so I was in there probably way more frequently than I should have to ever teach her what you're saying. And you're helping us learn how to teach themselves, which is really powerful.
Exactly. And it is a life skill because yes, initially we're talking about sleep, but that skill of self-soothing, independent sleeping, and independently entertaining yourself directly correlates to, okay, then that means during awake time, this baby is capable of sitting down with some toys for 15 minutes while I do the dishes. Whereas babies who were never sleep trained, well, let me correct that. Not babies who were never sleep trained, but babies who never figured out how to sleep by themselves. They always have to sleep with a grown-up or have a grown-up help them. Those babies are a lot harder to set down during the day because they're just so accustomed to being with you.
Right.
So to set them down, they just start screaming.
Wow.
Sleep training correlates to great behavior during the day as well.
Really?
Yes.
What can you tell, hypothetically speaking, say there's dads out there listening that have a 4-year-old daughter that sleeps throughout the night perfectly, except recently she's been starting to wake up about 2 a.m. and come into mommy's room and daddy's room and want to sleep in our bed. And says she doesn't like her bed. Our daughter is a little bit more advanced than I think she should be. But she blames it on the mattress. She says she likes our bed better. And I'm like, well,
hilarious.
I'm like, Lennox, you got going. I don't like my bed. I'm like, well, so
Oh,
is
that's
that
nice.
good, bad? What do you do? You have to push the kid back into their own bed, or
So
do
what's different about a baby and a big kid is that a baby has a jail built right up around them.
that's
There's not a
true?
lot of work for parents to do because the crib does a lot of the work. But once you've got a kid in a big kid bed, they have the free will to just hop out and come out whenever they want.
Right.
Um, so my system for dealing with bigger kids, like I said, it's a little too much to get into on here, but basically it involves making sure that your child is really great with cause and effect, making sure your child's communication skills are good enough. I won't do this with a child until they're 3 at least, because that's when cause and effect and logical consequences and thinking kind of takes hold.
Right.
Basically, it's setting a consequence, following through on the consequence, and teaching your child how to feel safe and empowered in their bed all night, which requires practicing and role playing, both the skill set of how to feel safe in your bed, as well as, and what's going to happen if you choose to get out of your bed, and have them repeat the consequence back to you.
Oh,
Whatever the consequence is that you guys end up setting.
right.
So it's a much bigger process than I can get into, but that's kind of the bones of it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's to me, what I think is most interesting is the amount of like education or psychology and training that needs to go into this properly that we don't think about. As parents, we don't think, my kid won't go to sleep. I need to learn how cause and effect works and like really teach them, It's just, that's interesting. We read what we read, we hear what we hear, we get 3 or 4 different ideas, and then we realize what we read in Cosmo didn't work out, and then we pick up the other one, and you're like, but they just told me not to do that with my baby, but now I should. And I'm like,
it's confusing. It's definitely very confusing for parents who are, and not even just parents who became parents and didn't have a father, but also there are so many parents who their child is their first experience with kids.
Right. Very true.
And so that's just as kind of like, whoa, wait, what do I do here? As it is coming into parenthood without having been raised by a strong father figure.
Interesting. Okay. That's really good stuff. So let's, I want to try to give you some time here. Let's do what's the quick and dirty on the potty training. How do we handle this? How do we get into it? I feel very fortunate. My daughter, she just turned 4. She's been going, we've had her potty trained, I think, almost about since she was 3. Like pretty close. She's been on the toilet. She goes, now it's like, that was awesome. She was never really hard with that, so we were blessed. She did really good, and then all of a sudden just started going pee and got her in the pull-ups for like, I don't know, 2.5 to 3 maybe, and then she was like, I don't want my pull-ups no more. I'm like, all right, you cool. Got her anyway, and now she goes.
Well, little girls tend to, not all little girls, but little girls tend to be easier to potty train and tend to be more of the types to potty train themselves than boys.
Really?
Yeah, and now don't get me wrong, there are easy boys and there are difficult girls, but if you're just kind of looking at the overview, it tends to be boys are harder than girls.
Okay.
And the quick and dirty, first of all, I also have a PDF I can send you and your dad's about potty training, but I'll give you kind of an overview now, if that's okay.
Much appreciated.
Potty training, there's so much pressure. I don't know about dads, but for moms, there's a lot of pressure like, oh, my little so-and-so potty trained at 2. Right. And you're like, oh my God, am I late? Did I do something wrong? So there's a lot of pressure to potty train young. Like there's some sort of fucking trophy. Oops, sorry. There's some sort of trophy.
Yeah.
There's no trophy for potty training. Like, stop pressuring your kids. So one of the biggest problems is that we put this pressure on our kids to potty train and they're not ready. And it's okay to wait. And the only real pressure that parents should be experiencing is at some point in the year of 3, their preschool teacher, their nursery room teacher might start saying, you got to get this one potty trained. So around 3 is usually the sweet spot when kids are actually ready. And so waiting for them to show signs like being really curious about what you're doing in the bathroom, talking about pee, talking about poop, getting into that conversation, which is just so super fun for everybody. When your kid wants to talk about that and wants to watch what you're doing, they're ready, they're curious, they're interested. Also, when they're waking up in the morning dry, they're ready and they're, you know what I mean? That means they're able to hold through the night, they're able to hold while they're asleep and wait until the morning. So that's a good jumping off point.
So would you make the argument, or is it your opinion then, if we're sort of blending those two, of allowing the child to start to learn it when they're ready versus not, or in addition to not pressuring yourself to make them be ready, is it equally safe to not really start the process or kind of push the process when they're 2 or 2.5, like until they're closer to the 3, or is that a bad move to?
It depends on the child. There are some 1.5-year-olds who want to potty train.
Wow.
If they're showing interest and they're waking up dry, I mean, I know 18-month-olds who just prefer to sit on the toilet. So, watch for your kids.
Wow.
I know. Watch for your kids' cues.
Okay.
And if they're ready, follow. But just don't feel like you have to push them. It's right around 3 where you start to have to kind of be like, all right, it's getting close to time that you've got to do this whether you want to or not. So if you've hit that 3, a little after 3 range, and there's still no interest, you do still need to start at that point anyways.
But that question is, if they're not ready, then you as the expert on this topic, are you giving these parents right now listening permission to stop forcing their kids to be potty trained?
Yes.
That's okay.
Like 1,000% check. Yeah. That's
what I think we feel, right? Like we've all done it. I've had my parents, my parents or grandparents, right? Like is Lennox potty trained yet? Like, is she still wearing diapers? She's still wearing diapers? I'm like, I mean, she's still in the pull-up. And and I remember I had a friend of mine, I worked at a daycare, and I remember she was relentless about that. She was on it with her kids. Like, he's only 2. I worked at a daycare for a while, so I took care of the 2 to 2.5-year-olds and the tykes, and it was just like 2 different worlds. You'd see some kids that the boys would just run over and they'd go pee and they'd come back, and I'm like, you're great. And then the other kids were still in diapers, and I'm like, I used to always wonder that, right? I was like, well, which one's normal or which one's more better? I don't know which one's more,
Which one is more correct?
Yeah, which one's more correct? Like, which one is? I don't know. Right. That's interesting. But it's so interesting what you said, though, about the parents, how we feel that pressure, the pressure to perform, the pressure to provide, the pressure to be the best, the pressure to live up to the next door mom who's like kid who's potty trained at 18 months.
Right.
And you're like, well, that's awesome,
That's for you, but there's no real trophy for that. So everybody just calm down and wait for your kid to be ready.
There's not a trophy. Are you sure?
Sure.
Have you?
I researched it. There's no trophy out
there. You did? That's good. That's scientifically, but if you get on Google Scholar, you will not find the trophy. That's
right.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Is there anything else? Any other sage advice you would give to the new dads or the new moms and us parents that are trying to figure out these 3 areas in particular, or any other secrets that you have for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that you're communicating with your partner honestly. Because the biggest thing that gets in the way of progress in any of these areas is going to be when parents are on a different page and they haven't communicated about that. So for example, one family might have a co-sleeping situation, and mom is perfectly happy to bring baby or child into bed, but dad is not super happy about that. And then there's no communication and resentment pops up. Same thing, for potty training, same thing for behavior training. If there's 2 opposing perspectives on this, you're not going to make any progress until you sit down and chat with each other. And so I do have a workbook that kind of walks parents through some exercises, so they can, before they do anything with me, they can kind of make sure, hey, we've talked this through, we know where we each stand, we know what we each want to accomplish, and we're on the same page, so we can start working.
Interesting. Okay. That's really cool. So, I'm hesitant on the last question. I'm not sure I want to dive into that or not, but, so I want to play devil's advocate for a minute.
Yep.
just because my own personal curiosity, right? So, um, and so there's always, and I'm sure you get this a lot. I know you do, right? So with the moms, like you said, there's always these things that grind your gears, right? And I told my wife yesterday I'm gonna start a new podcast called "This is What Grinds My Gears." I'm just gonna get on a soapbox and rant about these things, right? But I won't. But so one of the things, right, is that idea, like you mentioned in dads groups, right? Dads groups, they do that whole dads don't babysit. And they're like, they make T-shirts and they complain and they rant about it. And I'm like, guys, how about we stop complaining about that and we just like go start businesses and like take care of our kids? It's just my idea. I don't know. I could be crazy. And I've also had I've had this belief set, right, that, a lot of these, how do I say this politely? Not really. A lot of these stay-at-home dads that are like bloggers, right? They're not so much entrepreneurs. Like they're not running businesses. Like you are obviously blogging, but you're running a business. You're providing for your family. You're doing the thing, right? I've been of the mindset that the only reason you're a stay-at-home dad is because you married a stay-at-work wife, which segues into the concept for you as a nanny. How does this affect the children, right? If you're a full-time nanny or, the other people have full-time nannies, right? They're essentially, some of them are raising the children, right? I mean, if the mom's gone and dad's gone 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, and you're cooking and cleaning and potty training and sleep training, and we have, a friend that does it too, so I'm kind of familiar. So what is your opinion on that? What is your thought on these career parents, right? Because I start the Career Crusher Radio, and it's my personal belief that all dads should start businesses so that they have every moment when they wake up, the only choice they have is to be with their daughters or their sons or to work on the dance of their business.
Right.
And so what are your thoughts on that in regards to everything that you teach and you learn as being the other person, essentially raising your child or raising someone's child on how to be a child?
Right. So there's a couple of things to tackle here. Number one, there's so much guilt among parents for not being with their kids 40, 45 hours a week.
Right.
And they're with a nanny or not, they're not with you. So they're either in school or they're in a daycare or they're with grandma and grandpa or they're with a nanny. But the fact is, they're not going to be with you whether you have a nanny or not because you've got to go to work.
Right.
So parents feel guilty about this, and it's undue guilt. And unfortunately, they then come home with that guilt and give their child anything they ask for because they feel guilty that they've had to work.
True.
Which causes a whole other set of problems.
Which is the reason they keep working, right?
Right, exactly. But the most important thing to remember is even if you are working 40, 45, 50 hours a week, the most important pieces of your child's day are the wake-up routine, having breakfast together,
okay,
the dinner routine, bath time, and bedtime. If those things are happening with one or both parents more often than not, there's nothing to feel bad about. Now, it becomes a different story when your nanny is much, much, much more hands-on than that. Then we get into an area where there's some emotional confusion among who's actually raising the child.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the other piece of it you said was dads don't babysit. By the way, maybe you feel strongly about that. I love when dads stand up and they're like, I'm not a babysitter, I'm a father. Like, this is not a after school job for me. This is my child that I'm raising. I love that. I love that dads are standing up and are more involved and are proud to be involved. I don't agree with giving them a cookie every time because that's what you're supposed to be doing. But dads being really involved is definitely new in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, no, I agree with us being involved. My thing was just, and I don't know, and I say it in the sense of like, I tell people all the time, like, you heard Alex Sharfin's talk at Funnel Hacking Live, right? And he talked about the entrepreneurial personality type, right? And it's the idea of like, as soon as that person wants to start small talk, like, you drive me absolutely crazy and I just want to leave the room.
Yes.
Like, I'm that way. Like, I don't care. I tell people all the time, I don't care about sports. I don't care about the weathers. I don't watch the footballs, the games. Like, I want I'm going to talk, if we meet, I'm going to usually ask you within the first 5 minutes, like, what do you do? Like, what do you love? What are your hobbies? Like, what are your passions? Because I want to create meaningful relationships. So to me, I'm ignorant to some of these things that happen, right? And I don't know. There was the Amazon mom thing, and there was a big uproar. And then whatever happened with, I think there was something recently with the Pampers or Huggies, right? And there was like some commercial. And so to me, the time that dads invest in complaining about the uproar of things versus doing things that could build a business for their family or doing things that could make them better.
I agree. I totally agree. But at the same time, there are no changing tables in men's rooms.
True.
So it's like stay-at-home dads don't have which is ridiculous. Men should be able to bring their kids into the bathroom and change them.
They should. But then I wonder, like, what if instead we just raised the money and went to the restaurant in town and said, hey, like, here's $3,000. Can you I come here every Wednesday with my family. Can you put in a changing table?
Right. I agree. Have your words met with action.
Exactly. Quotable.
I get
it. Yeah. And I forget, you were saying I forgot the third point I mentioned or something that.
I'm so sorry. I'm totally off track now, but
I don't know. It was just interesting. I always had those thoughts when I worked at the daycare. Like, you know, I was there. I was teaching these kids how to read, and I was like, and the same kids would come the entire day, Monday through Friday. And when I think about that on a big scheme, right, with the potential of what we have, you know, like you could have gone from a nanny, and you didn't mention, I didn't catch, do you have your own kids?
Not yet. Interestingly,
No.
I have, nearly 1,000 kids under my belts of other people's children.
You just claim them as your own. You can just,
hopefully soon my partner and I will be there.
Yeah. But it just always intrigued me so much, like how much of their kids' lives that they could give away. And I talk about that all day long with with fathers now as a whole, because they don't get it until it's too late. They don't realize, you know what I mean? Like I talk about, you know, dads have their midlife crisis when they're 50, and then they sell the house and the boats and the cars and everything. And they're like, my daughter's gone. I'm like, she was gone at 14 because you were never there from 8 to 14.
Right.
Like, I was 20. I tell people I was so fortunate to have the epiphanies that I had, you know, at 28, to realize the magnitude of this and the relationships of what it means to be there. And I tell my wife, I was just telling her recently, like, no one's coming for you. No one's going to save you. Like Mel Robbins says, like, no one's going to build a business for you. Right. You know, no one handed you this magical parenting company and said, hey, here you go. You can live the life you want and be with your partner wherever you want and come and go. It's like, but so parents, we watched them for years. They've gone to work. I've always said they've gone to work and they bought everything their kids wanted, you know, they bought the house, they took the vacations. But never once did they stop and ask their kids what they actually wanted.
And the answer to that is you.
Yes.
And although children won't say that, children their actions will say that, but they'll say, I want the iPad, I want a cookie, I want more Legos or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, before any of those wants, what they really want and need is attention and affection from their parents.
Yeah.
However, I always tell my clients, don't feel guilty that you have to go to work and support your family. And some people have the pleasure of working from home and having more time, and that's amazing. But it doesn't do your child any good to beat yourself up over that guilt and then make your parenting choices based on that guilt. True.
It's very good. I will kindly accept the counter argument to the fact I still think a lot of dads could become entrepreneurs.
Yeah, they absolutely could. And also, even if they don't, you can take one day off a week. You can leave work early and go do something fun with your child.
Yeah.
Wednesday could be special day. Thursday could be special day. You guys go do something together. You intentionally make room in your life to have that one-on-one time with your children.
Yeah. I remember when we were at Funnel Hacking Live, and I talked to a handful of dads, and the response I got from dads when I told them about daddy-daughter date night once a week, like, it blew my mind that they were like, I don't take my daughter on a date every week. I've never thought of that. I'm like, well, you're twice my age. Like, you should have thought of that. I don't take credit. I didn't think of it till somebody told me. Like one of the dads that wrote one of his chapters in the book. It's called Sunday Somethings, Sean Ackerman, and he has his 2 daughters, and every single Sunday when his wife's gone at work and he's with the daughters, it's just him and his daughters. They do something. So it's Sunday Somethings. And I'm like, yeah, daddy-daughter date night, like every week. So now, and to this day, the very first one I took Lennox, we went to Baskin-Robbins and had ice cream. So every time we drive home now past the place, she says, daddy-daughter date night ice cream? Daddy-daughter date. And so now I just call everything I do. I got to the point, someone told me one time too, it's, I think I read it in a book, I don't remember where, but they reference like stop calling it quality time. You know, stop putting the pressure on you as a dad or a mom, you know, that you need quality time with your kids. They just need time. It's just time. Yeah. So now whenever I take her somewhere, I take credit for it. And I'm like, oh, you want to go daddy-daughter movie night? You want to go daddy-daughter pizza night? I get extra credit like I'm doing extra daddy-daughter date nights, but it's really just time. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to have been here with you, and I do want to make an offer. I would love to offer your dads, if they're interested. I do have a 5-day free trial access to my membership site. The membership site is normally $47 a month, and ultimately they're going to be getting access to me to ask their questions, access to all of my online resources and content addressing issues around, well, not issues, all of their questions around sleep, behavior, potty training, homework, all of the sibling troubles, all of that stuff, picky eating, all the stuff they're going through, as well as the workbook, as well as access to a VIP Facebook group where I hang out and answer questions. And so I'm happy to offer that to your listeners if they're interested.
Yes, that would be much appreciated. And where else, as we're wrapping things up here, where can they go get that information, or how can they help support you and get in touch? Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so you can find me at parentingmadejoyful.com. I have a free online parenting class there, actually, if they're interested in going through that. That's a really good starting point for people. I'm also, well, I can't talk about it. I signed an NDA. Never mind.
Stop the recording. Tell me more.
But yeah, parentingmadejoyful.com. They can come and they can find me there. And if they want to reach out to me personally, it's support@parentingmadejoyful.com.
Awesome. And you're also a writer for a couple places as well, right? Was it fatherly.com, I think?
So I've contributed to fatherly.com.
Awesome.
I've also been a longstanding contributing writer for Pampers, as well as a couple of other media outlets that are parent focused.
Interesting. Very awesome. Okay, great. So we will definitely leave links below when this goes live. We'll send it out to all of my listeners and she'll share it with her audience, I'm sure. And we will have links, of course, for you guys to get in touch. Definitely make sure, if you are watching this, definitely make sure you take advantage of the free masterclass and learn her 3 secrets on potty, parenting, behavior training, and sleeping. And that will be amazing. And then definitely reach out to her. Is it just a private group, or do you have another Facebook group?
So there's a public group on Facebook too. It's just look up Parenting Made Joyful and you'll see the free group.
Yeah, so definitely if you guys are dads and moms and you want to get into a safe space, then definitely head over and find that as well. And Kylee, it's been incredible. We appreciate your time today. Thank you for everything that you taught me and you taught the other listeners out there. And we appreciate everything, and it's been nice having you on, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.